Hey everyone, welcome to this week's car review. I have to say, it is a miserable day to be doing a car review. It has to be the coldest day of the year yet. It is snowing outside. Every time I get outside the car to take an outside shot or do something with my cameras, my hands freeze up and my face freezes up and I have to get back in the car and warm up for a few minutes. And even my cameras are starting to fail, like the button on my new camera won't start and the recording, and it's just miserable. I just can't wait for this winter to finish. I want to drive out to Pennsylvania and strangle that damn groundhog that said the winter's going to go on forever basically. So anyway, enough of my griping about the weather. What am I driving today? I'm driving the Jaguar XF. This is a brand new car. In fact, there's two things you need to know about this car. Is that this car was new just yesterday. It's only got 130 miles on the clock, of which I've put 40 miles, so less than 100 miles when I picked it up this morning. And the second thing you need to know is this is actually my boss's car. Well, one of my boss's cars. So it's very nice of him to let me drive his car, and it's part of the reason why I probably shouldn't beat on it too much, is that this is brand new car and it's my boss, so if I wreck it, it's not going to be good for me. I mean, even at the best of times, my boss, who's a very nice man, has a small amount of patience for the constant nonsense that comes out of my mouth, so I gotta watch what I say. Anyway, so what are we driving? Well, the Jaguar XF 3-litre supercharged all-wheel drive. There's only one all-wheel drive model within the XF range, and this is it. Only one engine type within that if you want all-wheel drive. But yeah, the XF has a wide range of engines. Is a 4-cylinder right up to the big 5-litre supercharged V8, which has 550 horsepower. So there's a lot of engines within the XF range, but this one is a sweet spot. This 3-litre supercharged has got plenty of power and pretty economical, and it's very well priced. And I'll talk a bit more about that later on. So what are we going to do in this review? Well, I'll quickly tell you what this car is, and then we're going to jump straight in and take it for a ride on the highway. Then I'll stop and we'll look around the outside of the car and then take a look on the inside. The inside's interesting because there's lots of little quirky things about these Jags that are unique to Jaguars, or at least unique to the XF range, which I wanted to show you. So that's neat. And I'll also quickly go over some of the other cars within the mid-size luxury vehicle range about this price range, which there's lots. This is a very competitive market. This is the E-Class, the 5 Series, the A6s, all those German cars. This is one of their big selling points, this mid-size luxury, particularly here in the US. So this car competes with a lot of cars, and it actually does pretty well compared to those cars. Car and Driver ranks this as 4th out of 12 luxury cars in this range, so it's doing pretty well. The only other thing to note about the XF range is that it's coming to the end of the line. This is the last year. 2015 is the last year that this model will be sold. They were introduced all the way back in 2007, so it's now 8 years old. And Jaguar, like a lot of car manufacturers, have a 7-year cycle. That is, they change their cars out every 7 years. So this car is now overdue for a change. And this year they're going to be bringing out the replacement of the XF, which I believe is just going to be called the XF2 probably, according to the spy shots of the model that's coming out. And they released this car back, they released this car in the Frankfurt Motor Show, so they'll probably release the replacement for this car also in the Frankfurt Motor Show, which is coming up later this year. Anyway, before we jump out and take it for a drive, what are some of the specs of this car? Well, it's got, as I said, the 3-litre supercharged engine, which produces a healthy 340 horsepower, 332 foot-pounds or pounds-feet of torque. It's got an official 0 to 60 time of 6.1 seconds, which is not that great, but it actually, anyone that's tested these cars has found that it can do it closer to 5 seconds. And a big part of that is the new 8-speed gearbox that they put in this. really helps it get that speed, because it's got some nice low ratios in the lower gears. And the other thing is that it's a pretty heavy car, 4,300 or 4,400 pounds. It's no lightweight, but then again, this is not a sports car. This is a luxury touring car in a lot of ways. So that weight is nice. It's nice to have a bit of weight in your big luxury car. So it's not so bad being that heavy. Otherwise, yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about the price later on, but that is one of the big selling points of this car, is that even though it's priced the same as all the others within the market, this car is loaded when you buy it. There's nothing else you can add to it, which is a big selling point for the Jaguars. Oh, and one more thing. I've been putting the timings for the different parts of the video down in the description, so if you don't want to watch the whole video, you can jump straight to my conclusion at the end by clicking on the timings down there. Anyway, off on our drive. I'm going to jump on the highway here. Pretty clear highway. I'm just going to wait for that. I'll wait for this Honda to go by. And wait for that. Okay, here we're going for a bit of a highway run. I'll just wait for this Honda to disappear. Looks like the highway is fairly clear, so I should be able to open her up a little bit. Ah, go away. Understand, rogue. Oh, I'll get in front of this Toyota. Okay, here we go. So you see, it's got a fair bit of pull to it. It's got a nice amount of torque for the size of the car. You don't hear a lot of the engine noise. You're pretty isolated from all the noise in the cabin. It's a pretty nice place to be, the cabin. And I guess that's the purpose of these sort of mid-size luxury cars, is they're a more comfortable car than a sports car. I've got the car in dynamic mode at the moment, so if I press this little checkered flag here, it will take it out of dynamic mode and it goes into a regular drive mode, and you see immediately that the revs drop down as it jumps right up to 8th gear and drives in a more economic mode. And you notice it straight away. You notice a lot of things about particularly the gearing, is that it's very reluctant to change down. Even if I push my foot almost all the way to the floor, it's still hanging around in 6th gear. So if I put it back in dynamic mode and do the same thing, I push my foot almost all the way to the floor, straight away it's into 3rd or 4th gear. So yeah, that dynamic mode certainly makes a difference. An interesting thing that I am not going to get to try out today, but is noted in both the specifications and other car reviews, that this car has a speed limiter on it of 119 miles an hour, which is odd. Particularly when you look at the speedometer. The speedometer shows 190 miles an hour, or 300 kilometers an hour, which I'd say is pretty optimistic to start with, but it's going to be a bit of a disappointment when you jump in the car and, woo, I can do 190 miles an hour, and then the car stops at 119 miles an hour. So yeah, I'd like to see whether it actually does that. That seems to be a pretty low speed limiter to me for a car that is capable over 150 miles an hour in reality. Okay, we're off the highway now, onto some back roads. And what I'd say is that this car, while it's really designed to be a comfortable cruiser, still retains some sporty elements as well, particularly the engine, transmission, and perhaps even the dampening. You know, it handles pretty well, soaks up the bumps. But yeah, the engine really responds quickly for a supercharged engine. There's really no delay there. I put my foot down and it's away straight away. And these modern automatic gearboxes are almost as good as dual clutches these days. I'll demonstrate. If I pop it into... Oh, here's another thing to note. When it's in drive, you can't override the gears. You can't pull on the pedal switches here and change gears like you can in most cars. In this Jag, it won't let you do anything unless you're in the sport mode. So if I pop it into sport mode, as soon as it goes into sport mode, it drops down a gear anyway. And it's very eager. If I just prod the throttle a little bit, it's immediately away. But if I go into manual mode by pulling on one of the toggles, you'll see what I mean by how quickly it can change gears. Hang on, let me get through this stoplight. I'll go up this road here. So second, third, fourth, and back down to third again. Very quick changes. So these modern ZF gearboxes are wonders. It's almost at the point where, you know, it's not necessary to have a dual clutch gearbox if you want a responsive automatic gearbox. Otherwise, you know, the steering is quite light. You don't get a lot of road feel through the steering, but I guess that's by design. This is meant to be a comfortable car more than a sporty car. But yeah, I could easily see myself driving this car long distances and being very, very comfortable in it. Okay, let's stop here and take a stroll around the outside so you can have a look at the styling cues of this Jaguar XF. I think overall a very handsome car. It's still got some of the styling cues of its predecessor, the S-Class. This car's got the 19-inch wheels. There's an optional 20-inch package for $1,500, but otherwise the outside the only other options are the colours. This is a nice colour, but I think if I was buying a Jag, I would like to get the British Racing Green. How cool would that be when your neighbours go, "What colour is that car?" "Oh, it's British Racing Green." And you could say it in a British accent as well, make it even cooler. So yeah, it's a nice looking car from the outside. Okay, let's stop here and take a look around the inside. The first thing I noticed getting in this car is how new it smells. I mean, this really smells new. I mean, I drive a lot of brand new cars, but this car has got a really lovely rich leather smell inside it. It's very British. Obviously it's got tan leather. It's a comfortable car. Everything you touch is soft materials. It's got leather right across the dash here, leather around the edges, leathers on pretty much everything you touch. So it's a nice place to be. It's an interesting mix, tan leather with brown wood, and then aluminium with some nice deviated stitching. We all know how much Nick likes a bit of deviated stitching. So yeah, you know, this is all standard. You don't have to pay for any of this stuff. This is when you buy a Jaguar, you get all this lovely stuff for free. So if we have take a look of the car from the left to the right, over on the left here, there's the nice buttons for the windows. These are very solid feeling buttons. The metal casing, you know, it's a very every button and control is fairly solid. Apart from the indicator switch or toggles, they're a little flimsier. Steering wheel's nice. It doesn't have a 10 and 2 grip, but we can forgive it for that. It's got a nice soft leather to it. The instrument cluster is readable, and you know, this I haven't really worked out how to change the clock on this to anything else. You can press the button on the end of here to change between the functions on the trip controller, and then the fuel gauges on the bottom. Moving across to the center stack, you've got these neat vents, which when you start the car up or turn the climate control on and off, move up and down. I think a lot of people would just go, what a gimmick, that'll just break down, but I think it's pretty cool. In fact, that's not the only gimmick. Of course, when you start and stop the car, the gear selector turns itself, pops up and down as well, which I really love. And another one is the light switches. You just have to swipe them to make them come on and off, like so. So there's lots of really neat little touches in this car. Even the floor mats have got the tan trim around the edges, so you know, they've really thought it through. The glove box, this little tiny button here, and smoothly opens, which is pretty neat. So, you know, it's a pretty nice, comfortable place to be on the inside, and it's got lots of little nifty touches. Everything is controlled through these switches here, and some of it's not exactly intuitive, like figuring out, for example, how to turn on the heated seats. You actually got to press the heated seat button, and then you've got to go up to the seat control here. But one of the neat things is that, say you've got a hankering for a warm back but not a warm back side, you can say, I just want to warm my back, and it will just turn on the heating for your back, or you can just turn on your bum. So that's quite neat. Exit. So there's lots of little neat touches like that. Menu. Otherwise, the infotainment system's pretty good. It's better than a lot of other British cars that I've driven before. And in the center here, there's little cubby holes, drinks holders, and so forth. And more storage, decent amount of storage. The seats themselves have plenty of adjustment there. Forward, back, up and down. And you can even adjust the rake of the seat, depending on the length of your legs. And of course your lumbar support. Now into the rear seats, and things aren't as roomy as they could be back here. I'm a little short on leg room, and I'm a little short on headroom. I'm 6 foot tall, and my head is definitely hitting the roof. So yeah, the seats could do with a little bit more space back here, especially for a medium-sized car. But yeah, if you're probably 5'8" or less, then you're going to be perfectly comfortable back here. You get one cigarette lighter and a couple of vents, but that's about it when it comes to extra luxuries back here. But yeah, nice, the nice leather and everything flows through back here otherwise. So the back is a pleasant enough place to be, as long as you are not as tall as I am. Onto the trunk. The trunk isn't very deep, but it's very, very long. It's got all my camera guff in there at the moment, but yeah, you can get the idea if you have a look in there. It's got plenty of length. You could fit some decent sized bags in the back. So the trunk's a nice big trunk. Okay, so let's quickly consider what other cars are in this price bracket and model range, the mid-size luxury range. There's a lot of cars. I'm not going to go over them. But the leaders in this market are the Audi A6, the BMW 5 Series, and the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. There's also a lot of Japanese cars that fall into this range, and even American cars that fall into this range. The Japanese one that would leap to mind would be the Lexus GS, and the American one that I like the most is the Cadillac CTS, which is great value for money. Okay, let's take a closer look at my 4 favorite competitors to the Jaguar. The Audi A6, the BMW 5 Series, the Mercedes-Benz E-Series, and the Cadillac CTS. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to price them out as close as I possibly can to the same configuration as the Jaguar I'm driving today. That is a 6-cylinder turbo engine, all-wheel drive, 19-inch wheels, winter package, and metallic paint, and a few other little bits and pieces if I can pick them out in the configurators. So I'll give you both the base price and the price as configured to the Jaguar. Now keep in mind that all 4 of these cars are much newer platforms than the Jaguar, so as standard they come with a few features that you just can't get on the Jaguar. Most notably being much more modern infotainment navigation system, and a few additional safety features. And on top of that, they come with many options that you cannot get with the Jaguars. The most notable being the driver assistance packages, the head-up displays, and of course the much fancier navigation and entertainment systems. But configured to be like the Jaguar, some of them are far more expensive. So what are we going to do? We'll start with the most expensive one, the Mercedes-Benz E400 4MATIC. It has about the same horsepower and torque as the Jag, but it comes in at a base price of $63,000 and configured to be like the Jaguar is a whopping $68,800, so almost $69,000. Of course, you're paying for that Mercedes badge, but they are quite a modern and very nice car as well. But yeah, you're paying a lot more for the Mercedes. Next would be the BMW 5 Series. If I pick out the 535 iX, which is the 4-wheel drive, It also starts lower than the Jaguar, but once you add the few basic features, like I mentioned before, to bring the BMW up to the same spec as the Jaguar, it rockets up to a massive 65,000 or 66,000 just with those few options. It also has the least powerful engine at 300 horsepower, although I think those engines are a little underrated because it still does about the same 0 to 60 as the Jaguar does. The next would be the most bang for your buck and power-wise, the Cadillac CTS. Gives an enormous 420 horsepower and 430 foot-pounds of torque out of its 3.6 twin-turbo engine. And they come in at a base price of $59,000, and configured like the Jaguar is only $63,000. So they are a real value for money, those CTSs. They are beautiful cars inside as well. But the real value for money, believe it or not, comes from the Audi A6. Which once again doesn't have that much power in its engine. It's a 3-litre turbo FSI engine, which they claim is 310 horsepower, but I think it's closer to probably about 340 horsepower. But yeah, the base price of those is $57,000, and configured like the Jag, they're a bargain at $59,400. So yeah, the real competitive price model is the Audi A6. But yeah, I would like any of these 4 cars. They're all great competitors to the Jaguar, and would explain why they're all so popular in this market. So, what dear chap? The longer I drive this car, the more I want to speak in a British accent, which is pretty cool. But yes, what are my conclusions about driving the 2015 Jaguar XF all-wheel drive supercharged 3-litre? Well, there's a lot to love about this car. In particular, it's a little different. When everyone else is buying the German mid-sized luxury cars, the Audis, Mercedes, the BMWs, you can go out and buy a Jaguar and have something a little different. And you're really not missing out on anything by buying this car. It's still got plenty of power, plenty of handling, great handling. It's a fun but comfortable car to drive. The other things that I'd say would be that it's a nice comfortable ride, and I like all the little touches, you know, the gear thing that pops up, the vents, the lights, all the little Jaguar niceties. It's got some great touches. As for things that I don't like about the car, well, you know, I didn't really have a lot to gripe about. I really had to scratch my head about what could I say that are negatives, and so all of my negatives are really could be considered positives from some points of view. First one being that this is the final year of this car, and so that could annoy people, that if you bought a brand new Jag and then they brought out a whole new model the same year, might feel a little slighted. But on the other hand, the good thing about it being the last year is that they've already worked out all the problems, and you're going to get a bargain for this car. So being the end of line model may be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your point of view. My other little niggle gripe would be the infotainment system. Well, most of the time it's great. I've found, well, I've been driving it today, that every now and then it lags a little bit behind the input that you've put. Like even if you're changing the radio volume, you turn it up and it's slowly creeping up as you're turning it, and then it jumps. So it needs a slightly more powerful processor, if you ask me, but otherwise it works fine. And the only other gripe that I'd really have is the rear headroom and leg room for the rear passengers should be a little larger. And that 119 mile an hour speed limiter seems a little strange to me, although I didn't test it myself. Maybe it doesn't actually exist, but all the other reviews have mentioned it. And so if you have a car that's capable of 150 plus miles an hour, yet it's limited to 120 miles an hour, I don't know, for most people they never go over 100 miles an hour, so it wouldn't be a problem. But for me personally, I'd really find that to be annoying. I'd want to be able to open it up every now and then. But yeah, other than that, it's a great car. You know, if you're looking for something a bit different in this price range, I'd certainly take a Jag for a spin. I think you'd really love it. Anyway, I wanted to thank my boss Steve for lending me his car, and I'll see you guys all in my next review. And if you've got any comments, pop them down below. And for any of you that have a fancy car of some sort, or a different car that I would like to review, and you live here in the US, send me an email. I've got the email will be at the end of this video, and I'll certainly consider reviewing it. I've got lots of great cars lined up for this year, But I always welcome more cars to review. So if you've got something special, even if it's an old classic car perhaps, send me an email and maybe I can review it. Anyway, thanks for watching everyone. I'll see you next week. Bye then.